Dr. Elmer, Advanced Neurospinal Solutions, and we're continuing to discuss compulsive disorders, compulsive issues, and that we discussed where it is in the brain, that it is a brain issue, that these compulsive activities or tendencies tend to flow from, rather than it's happening and it's in the brain. Think of it as an effect of the brain. It's a brain problem itself. So in coming up with solutions, we're going to differentiate between techniques and solutions, because there are techniques, there are things that we can do to deal with it at the time. That won't necessarily solve the problem. And so in compulsivities, in terms of movement patterns, and that if you're discussing this, I just want to follow this pattern. If it's short, we tend to call it stereotypies. Here we discussed it as a hyperkinetic disorder, too much movement, and that. But also it can be compulsive thoughts, compulsive emotions, little things that trigger, and immediately you're overcome with thoughts or overwhelmed with emotions and that, and those things have been wired into the basal ganglia, which is what we discussed already. And so things that would force the system to improve its ability to have that basal ganglia work better, especially to be able to have a brake, to put the brake on. Right? We discussed the indirect loop as being a brake and the direct loop as being the gas pedal, and that in compulsive disorders you've got a great gas pedal and very little to no brake. And so we have to, the solution is to build the brake pedal and to force the system to learn how to do that. A lot of the things that we would tend to do are going to tend to make the problem potentially even worse. The more we think about whatever it is, or the more we attend to that, the more we're supplying energy to that system in the wrong way, right? It's getting gas pedal rather than brake pedal. And so some of the things that I would have you do just right now, immediately, is, are we dealing with an issue that we can do something about? So we'll try, one of my favorites is wall sits. You literally sit against the wall as though you're in a chair, and you're going to hold that position, and maybe you're holding for 15, 30 seconds, up to a minute, and then you're going to stand out of that. You're going to take a deep breath and see, and close your eyes and see if that softened or dampened that feeling. See, in our office, that's one of our solutions, is to build the part of the brain in the frontal lobe that actually feeds back what we call the hyperdirect pathway and assists this whole thing. But in order to truly solve the problem, we're going to have to build that entire system from the bottom up, from the top down, and from the front back. And that looks like this. We're going to, the opposite, like let's say we've got a left brain problem, and that in that left brain problem we have a hyperkinetic disorder, which includes the compulsive behaviors or disorders and that. And so we're gonna be doing right-sided body movement. And there are two pathways that we're going to use. One is called the mesolimbic and pathway, and one is called the mesocortical pathway. And each of these, we work those movement patterns so that it can work the off button part of the system. Then we're going to also work from above down. Now, the cortex is a problem on this side, and because it's a problem, it's weak. It drives weak. And so it drives downward Why does it do that? It's trying to stimulate the basal ganglia to bring up the idle of the basal ganglia. As it brings up the idle, then the brake and gas pedal work better, right? They have a better function. It's like in your car, if your idle was running low, all of a sudden you're gonna stall at the light. But we turn up the idle, and all of a sudden, hey, it's running fine, and at the light it's great, okay, and it runs even better. So we're going to do things, exercises with that are on that left side of the frontal lobe, and they're going to be feeding down into the basal ganglia. The better we create skill level over here, kind of like comparing a Olympic gymnast to a tumbler, right? This guy has amazing skill. His circuitry is highly developed, highly refined. This side is less. Well, if this is less, then it's feeding down like this, and this one is feeding down like this. And so his basal ganglia on the other side comes up and is able to assist the cortex itself. That's why it does it, is because it's waiting. What do I do? I'm depending on you to tell me what to do, so I'm going to give you a little juice to make it easier for you to tell me what to do, and then I'll do it. Right? So that's below up from the opposite side, above down from the same side, and then, as I talked about before, that front back, those hyperdirect pathways. And when we look at the hyperdirect pathways, we talked about on and off, gas and brake. Well, the hyperdirect pathways are way up in front. This is the left brain, dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, this is the prefrontal cortex, and this is the orbitofrontal cortex. Okay? Each one of those has an impact that we call hyperdirect. What does that mean? When they fire backwards, and these are highly skilled circuitries, mature circuitries that you would see, we call it executive functions that are highly mature, the ability to deal with social situations, read people's faces, respond, you know, having a social savvy, ability to control their emotions, and that all those functions are very, very highly skilled. So these things are feeding backwards to assist, but here's the thing, we just can't do any movement with this to get these pathways, because when we first engage these hyperdirect pathways, they actually press the on button, right? They're saying go, but it's very short-lived, and then this is on, this is off, okay? Gas, brake. And so in order to engage these frontal pathways, we can't just do a motion and keep doing it. We're going to have to engage it in an isometric type fashion where we're putting pressure, and as we put the pressure and leave that pressure on, it's going to turn on, but then it'll start engaging off. And we want to build the off part of these hyperdirect pathways so that they're not only skilled, but they're highly endurant, and so that they have more power to the punch, and so that we have, like I always say, a 6-lane highway instead of a dirt bike path to these. And that is, you know, much more skilled. And so those are the kinds of things that we do in order to solve this problem, because we have to build the system, because anything else, I mean, if you're taking medications and it's knocking it down, serotonin, GABA, ACH, these kind of things could potentially be helpful. The problem is, if they are working, that means you got a blood-brain barrier problem, because those things shouldn't get through the blood-brain barrier. But if they're calming it, you do not want to give things that are dopamine or dopaminergic. Like we said before, if you give dopamine, it's going to turn on the on button and off the off button, which that's going to be disastrous. Okay? So that is the difference between techniques versus solutions. We're working the solutions here. We do teach little techniques for patients to do as we're solving the problem, but our intent is to solve the problem. We want the brain to be the way it's supposed to be so that we don't have this issue anymore. Remember I said, and I say it over and over again, the closer you get to the truth, the simpler the solution. Knowing where the problem is knowing what needs to be done, and knowing what needs to be done is to be able to find a way to do that, and that's what we do here. If you have any more questions, please let me know. We're ready to do many more videos. We're very excited about it. It's a lot of fun. And remember, we're here when you're ready to take your life back.